The Red Gold and Bold podcast is live again. If you catch us via the podcast, remember we are live Tuesday nights, 9:30 p.m., Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Much to cover here today. Why did Kelce have his best day in 2024? What are the takeaways from the Josh Uche trade? The Chiefs picking up a pass rusher. Is the pass rush back? They did have 5 sacks from 5 different players, all from the front 7 in the last game. What stands out about the Hopkins debut? The Ravens acquire Diontae Johnson. Did the Chiefs acquire the right wide receiver since the cost was about the same? What do the last 2 trades say about the Chiefs' quest for a three-peat? Should we be concerned about Xavier Worthy? How do the Chiefs do replacing Jaylen Watson? Is Spagnuolo the best assistant in the NFL? Don't know if we'll get to that one. Going to try. Does Mahomes still deserve to be in the MVP race? We're talking about it all right here on the Red Gold and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on the Tuesday edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Chadiha, McDowell, Petro with you, talking Travis Kelce, 10 for 90 and a touchdown. Why now, Jeff, did Travis Kelce have his best day?
Well, the opponent matters. So I think Sam alerted us to the fact that the Raiders are one of the worst teams in defending the tight end. So if he had a bad game, that would be a bad sign for him. So that's the first one. I think that they made a conscious effort to get him the football, and that's a big part of it as well. Look, I'm not going to go crazy over 10 for 90. This is a guy who used to do like 12 for 150 and 3 touchdowns with no problem. It's a good day for him, but to me, it's also an indication of where he's at in his career. I thought Kevin Harlan was a little over the top talking about the amazing day he was having.
Over the top. Kevin Harlan, come on now. You want to fight? Is that what you want? You want me to drive over to your house and we're just going to throw down? No one besmirches the name of Kevin Harlan in my presence and gets away with it. I will tell you that right now.
Yeah. We finally found someone to criticize Kevin Harlan. I didn't think that person existed.
Well, we knew if he did.
His broadcast. He's a great guy from everything I know about him.
If we did think somebody was going to do it, we pretty much knew it'd be Jeff. Is that right? Come on, Jeff. How do you come down on Kevin Harlan? I mean,
he was catching 8-yard passes and he was losing his mind. I'm like, what are we doing here?
Fair enough. That is somewhat. I mean, Kevin gets excited. About the game, about the broadcast. Let's focus on Travis Kelce. I didn't, and look, I'm a huge Kevin Harlan fan. I'm a huge Chiefs fan, so I may not be the right guy to ask whether or not he was a little too over the top. I'll excuse myself from that one because I tend to have a pretty critical eye. I didn't notice that, but what did you notice about the performance of Travis Kelce? This was his best performance. Is it all opponent driven?
Some of it's opponent driven. I mean, the Raiders, as I mentioned, but like Jeff said, are terrible at defending tight ends. But the reason this really stuck out to me, and I wrote about it after the game on our website, is that the Raiders play a lot of zone. And against the Chiefs, historically, that's not been wise because of Travis Kelce. This year's been the opposite. I mean, all of his numbers have dipped, but no numbers more than the way he's performed against zone defenses this year. The worst year he's had under Patrick Mahomes just against zone defenses is 48 catches. Just against zone defenses, 642 yards. And Mahomes' worst passer rating when targeting Travis Kelce against zone defense is 98. His passer rating this year targeting Travis Kelce in zone defenses is 51. He has 117 yards against zone coverages this season, less than 20 per game. On Sunday, 79 of his 90 yards were against zone defense. Like the connection that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce have had, the thing that we've all talked about, like how does he know where he's going? These two are always on the same page. They find that they read the defense the same at the back end. That all matters against zone defense specifically, and that's what's been absent for the first 6 weeks. And so that's why I found the Travis Kelce development significant regardless of opponent. It was very specific to the type of coverage that they were beating because it was that very type of coverage that they haven't been beating in the first 6 weeks of the season.
Listen, I know DeAndre Hopkins didn't play a ton. Matthew says I think Hopkins helped Travis a bit too. D-Hop will help Kelce. Kelce just hates the Raiders. I like that one from Eli. Is the idea of getting DeAndre Hopkins on the field, though, part of what will, make things really go for Travis Kelce? Does he help him get open, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, you saw it in that touchdown pass that Kelce got, that he was on the field when that happened. And I'm sure like the way they had to play defense against him, they had to give Hopkins a little more respect, and they couldn't cover both in that short area, which, I think Hopkins will have an impact with Travis Kelce. I think he'll have an impact with Xavier Worthy. The impact he'll have individually, I'm not as certain of. But yeah, it's anytime you can put more people on the field that defenses have to respect, it's a positive for you. And so, Sam and I both brought up this last week in terms of just, being cautiously interested in how this is going to play out because, yeah, it's probably they're going to have their moments, but they're also going to have moments when it's probably not going to look great because neither one of these guys are speedsters and they're older, and it's not what it was in 2020 for this offense. So I think that is a reality check. But yeah, I certainly feel like he's going to mean more to Kelce than probably Juju or McCole Hardman or Justin Watson.
I also like this. Maybe the full beard is helping. It's superstitions alive and well on that. I mean, so what do you expect next time out? Right.
So I spent like 1,500 words analyzing Kelce and how he beat the Raiders, and we're just deciding, nope, it's the beard.
It's the grooming.
Forget all that Forget everything I just said. All that research I poured into that. It was just the beard.
Yeah, it's the beard. It's the beard that's getting it done. Listen, there is a lot of optimism. Blake is talking about the zone defense. I think having somebody like Hopkins around who can also read and beat it will amplify/restore what Kelce does. Let me put it to you this way, Sam. What will he do next time out against the Bucs? What do we see from Travis Kelce? Do we see another big day? If he strings a couple of these type of days together, then do we start to buy in a little bit more?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's had 3 out of 4 that have been fine. I mean, to Jeff's point, like the days of seeing Travis Kelce turn 6 catches into 120 yards is probably gone. Like he is a much shorter depth of target receiver now. But another stat that intrigued me was, Travis Kelce had only turned 7 third down catches into first down. 7 times he moved the chains on third down. He did it 3 times. And to me, that was a big reason on Sunday. And that was a big reason why the Chiefs got back to their old school ways of just dominating third downs. They were 12 out of 16 on third downs. Soren, I mentioned this on your show today, but one of the misses was the kneel downs at the end of the game. So you take that away, it's 12 out of 15. And 2 of those other 3 misses are Xavier Worthy dropping passes. Like those.
Hold on now, Sam. You getting this? You Soren getting a little flushed over there.
Yeah,
you're messing with this guy.
I mean, do I have to fight everybody here now? Is that what's going on? Is it just going to be like a old school wrestling match? I'm going to go running down from the dressing room and throw a chair into the ring with you two here. Come on now, settle down. We'll get to Xavier Worthy in a minute, but Mahomes had a great day, right? Even his interception was a tip ball. He's been a victim of some bad luck. He's also had bad throws, right? We all agree that he can play better, but it did at least seem like he was playing better. And part of it was, maybe that's part of it for Kelce. Like we talk about the Raiders, the zone. Maybe it's like Kelce looks better because Patrick Mahomes is playing better.
Yeah, I mean, and also the Chiefs, we've talked all year about them being this run-first offense and being so dependent on the run. I went back and counted, and 8 times they opened a 1st and 10 with a pass in the first half.
They were 8
times. All 8 times they eventually converted that series into a new set of downs. Like they were incredibly successful when they passed the ball on first down in a way that we haven't seen all season. And it's probably a little bit of a chicken and the egg argument for what comes first. Their passing game looks good, then Travis Kelce all of a sudden is open. But I think it's more likely the inverse because we've seen the inverse so frequently. Like when Travis Kelce finds space in zones, the whole offense suddenly looks a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, no doubt. Your parking lot will look a lot better with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Your insurance looks a lot better with David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, Jeff, let's talk a little bit about the fact that they made another trade. They go get a pass rusher on this one, Josh Uche from the New England Patriots. If they get the compensation pick in the 7th round for him walking away, this ends up being basically trading their 6th for Uche and a compensation 7th. That's a big part of the equation that I think people have wanted to point out there. So it's not that steep. 2 years ago, he had 11.5 sacks. This year he has 2. What do you make of the deal?
I like it. It's low risk. He's a player that if he's used appropriately, he can be a difference maker. Like he ain't the biggest guy in the world. He'll be a pass rush specialist to come in on passing downs. They need, we don't talk a lot about this because they're 7-0, but this team does have warts, and one of those warts is outside of Chris Jones. There's nobody that's really an effective pass rusher that, and from game to game. And so this is a guy who's bringing speed off the edge. They don't have anybody who does that right now. His type of build, his type of skill set. I think Spagnuolo is he loves to have different types of body types. And so I think he'll find ways he's a chess piece, but I think he's along the lines of a Mike Edwards, Drew Tranquil type pickup for this defense. A guy who doesn't have a big name, but if you use him the right way, you can see him making some big plays for this defense.
By the way, I'm being corrected. It's Uche. So I apologize for mispronouncing it. I have heard a couple of people say that.
Is that him?
Maybe it is. Is he a
Mizzou?
Did he go to Mizzou? I don't think so.
Right.
Where did he go? He went to
Michigan.
Michigan.
With Mike Dana. It's also Joshua. He's pretty particular that it's Joshua, not Josh.
Okay. Joshua Uche, Sam, is now part of the Chiefs defensive line. What do you think of the trade?
Well, my biggest takeaway is what it says, what they think about everyone else that they have on the roster. Yep. And look, George Karlaftis has not been good in the first 5 weeks. He's been good in the last 2. So I think we're starting to see George Karlaftis come on a little bit. He's had 2 of his 3 sacks in the last 2 weeks. He's also been credited with 4 stops in the last 2 weeks. Like he's been a force. And go back and watch George Karlaftis on the 4th down play that stops him at the goal line, because it's hard for me to even describe. He's basically parallel to the ground when he tries to get half a sack there. So he's coming on, but FAU has been a slow burn. Mike Dan has been hurt, and he was ineffective before he got hurt. Perhaps that's related. Perhaps he was already dealing with that. And otherwise, you have like Malik Herring there and Charles Amin, who's going to come back, but the guy's missed almost a full year with a knee injury. Like, you can't just count on him being as effective as he was before he got hurt, because he was very effective before he got hurt, but you can't count on it being that same guy. You add all that together, and it's a lot of question marks. And Jeff brings up an interesting point that I hadn't thought about, which is he brings a different type of edge speed. And so if they're able to utilize that, because Spags likes to use guys in matchups, and there's perhaps, I'm thinking of a left tackle that played here in Kansas City for 2 years that was pretty good when guys tried to bowl him over with Orlando Brown, but was pretty susceptible when guys tried to beat him around the edge with speed. There might be some matchup dependent situation where Uche really comes in handy.
This is all about Josh Allen. It's all about Lamar Jackson. It's about CJ. It's about the playoffs. This is about getting guys to the ground in the playoffs, because that's what they're going to have to do to win another championship.
Yeah, I think it's about giving different looks, because you mentioned they were talking about a guy who's 6'1", 240, right?
If he's 240.
If he's 240. But this is the pure speed guy. And everyone's seen it by now. If you're a Chiefs fan and you follow social media at all, I got it sent to me by like 6 different people about Bill Belichick's, loves this trade, thinks it was a steal for the Chiefs, thinks that the problem has been the Patriots don't have the lead anymore. Sam brought up today, Jeff, that, wasn't Bill Belichick was basically run out of town because his GM skills suck. So is that what we're now hanging our hat on?
What do you say?
I'm saying the guy was such a good coach, he could overcome his personnel moves.
He said they were even good defensively when the personnel was good. Now they're terrible defensively, but now he comes in and goes, hey, thumbs up to the
guy I drafted.
Yeah, should we be nervous about that he's on board? I'm going to take it as a positive. I think it's a great point by Sam, and I think there's validity to it. But
I will say this: I'm surprised at the compensation at a time when the Ravens need pass rushers, the Lions need pass rushers. There's other teams out there that are searching for help in this department, and they basically gave him away. I was surprised the Chiefs were able to get him for what they got him for.
Yeah, it is. But it says he was also rumored. Uche was rumored to come from the Chiefs. I remember Adam Teichert saying this a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lot of scuttlebutt about him coming to Kansas City. So it sounds to me like they were in conversations that if you could get a better offer, you would have gotten it. Should that be the concern, Sam? That why didn't somebody give more for this guy? I mean, we'll get to Diontae Johnson in a while. There's reasons why he didn't bring much back in a trade from the Baltimore Ravens. Should we be concerned about nobody else offering more?
I think when you look at those other teams, they decided they had bigger needs. I mean, the Ravens made a trade for Diontae Johnson. The Bills made a trade for Amari Cooper. And I think that teams are going to be less willing to part with multiple draft picks from the same class, which is why it is interesting to me that this is a 2026 pick. And it does get to the fact that they believe that there could potentially be a compensation pick awarded to where it becomes a 6th or 7th round swap instead of just giving up a 6th round pick.
Well, I'd go further. I think they're counting on it. I think either they're going to love him and they're going to try to find a way to sign him, or they're counting on that pick coming back. A 6 isn't the end of the world if they have to give that up, Jeff. But it is. It's interesting to see. Some of the trades that are the veterans are down in what they're bringing. Even like in the old days, like I can't remember who I was talking to. I think it was Danny Klingscale last Friday. We talked about. You try to get a DeAndre Hopkins at 32, like 20 years ago, you'd be giving up a 1st round pick. Well, you're always a 1,000-yard wide receiver. Like everything has come down, but this seems awfully cheap. And
the Chiefs gave up a 3rd and 6 for Kadarius Toney.
Yes, I mean even in just for the last few years. But Kadarius Toney was a recent 1st round pick. Had youth, you had years of control. I think that was part of it as well, obviously. But yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, it does look like everything is getting, the player that's in the league just isn't valued much anymore.
Yeah, well, and GMs are a lot more savvy about, what are we really doing this for? What struck me about this move when I saw it was, wow, these guys really are all in for this three-peat. Like, I think we've gone back and forth about whether this matters to them. Like, I think if you're thinking, hey, if we win it this year, great. If we don't, oh, well, you don't make this move. But this strikes me as we got to do whatever we can to get this championship now. I think there's a recognition that Kelce is probably may not be around next year, or is at a point where he's not having the same impact. Obviously, Hopkins probably won't be back here next year. Juju, all these guys, Hollywood Brown, if he ever plays, like it's this incarnation is this may be the last time we see this type of team together. And so it struck me as them being a lot more, not desperate, but aggressive. Whereas I think some of the other teams that we name, like the Lions and the Ravens, even the Bills, people who need help are not as just, okay, well, we're not going to go that far with this.
That's a great point. There is quite a few guys that are in for just a couple of legs of the tour. Like we're going to play a couple of dates and we're out. I mean, that is a good point. They've accumulated a number of them. They did accumulate 5 sacks in this game. Listen, last year they were the number 2 team in the NFL for sacks. They're on pace for 30-something this year. Coming into this game, they had 10. There were only 3 teams that had less sacks than them, Sam. Just getting 5 sacks, all of them from the front 7, by the way, not 2 from the corners, 2 from the safeties, and all came from the front 7. And now add Uche into this mix as well. How much better do we think the pass rush is right now? Is it back to being one that can be feared?
Well, I think you just have to look at this move we're talking about, like to get the Chiefs signal that they don't think that's something that's going to just be repeated from a week-to-week basis. Like they still look at it and said, we still need help. And you look at the way they're getting sacks, even the ones that they have got. I mean, the Chiefs are 3rd in the NFL in blitz percentage. They blitz on 35% of the downs. That's Steve Spagnuolo, even though he's look, all of his blitzes are not created equal. They're not all bring 6 guys, bring 7 guys. Sometimes they blitz a cornerback, and we saw FAU in coverage on a play in Las Vegas. Like, so it's can be misleading. I understand that, but it's a defensive coordinator that thinks he needs to bring extra guys most of the time to create pressure. And he's usually right about that. And so I don't think that one game where they were really good in that one game, but I don't think that's the best indication of what they're going to be the rest of the season.
Well, and it kind of says, Jeff, that, there weren't corners available, right? Because they lost L'Jarius Sneed, and now they lost Jaylen Watson, Sneed to free agency, obviously, and Jaylen Watson to injury. And if you can't get a corner, get to the quarterback faster, right? Like
I think that's exactly what it is. I think it's about protecting the back end more because, the Raiders don't have a lot of weapons. But one thing I did really caught my eye early was, hey, they went and lined up Brock Bowers out on the outside and we're going after Trent McDuffie, and it's like, okay, I could see the Bills doing that with their tight ends. I could see the Ravens doing that with Likely. I could see, obviously the Bengals were doing that. Now, if they make the playoffs, I think that they still will be there. But you've seen teams take advantage of tight ends and running backs against this defense, and so the loss of Jaylen Watson to me is not just significant in the coverage part of it. It affects the blitz package part of it. Because now you have to expose people in coverage you probably don't want to expose. You don't have all these insurance policies on the back end to protect you. So big plays could be had. So Uche is also here for that reason.
Tim Grunhard talked about it today about getting back to the NASCAR package. And that's one of the things you can't really do when you can't get there with 4, right? Like, and that's one of the things, they've been so good in coverage, but they have to bring a lot of people. If they don't have to bring a lot of people, how many more coverages Sam can Steve Spagnuolo be throwing at people and make even more difficult for the quarterback back there?
Well, I don't think he's ever out of coverages because if you go back and watch the Vegas game, sitting next to Jesse Newley pointed this out in real time. They dropped Drew Tranquil on one play to deep safety. He never runs out of tricks, but the NASCAR package, you said Tim Grunhard brought it up. It's a great point because to me, part of this should mean that Chris Jones can rush from the inside more frequently. And I know he wants to rush outside, but to me, he's way more effective as an inside rusher. And also inside pressure, I think, is just much more disruptive than outside pressure is. You see the way Patrick Mahomes responds to outside pressure when his tackles aren't as good. He's able to move around the outside, and it's tougher for him when the pressure comes right in his face. And so if there's a package that can help move Chris Jones outside, I think Uche gives them a better opportunity to do that more frequently.
And we know my guy, Mike Pinnell, and Derek Nottie have been made a big impact in the run defense, but they're not great pass rushers. And I think this, to your point, Sam and Jeff, it gets maybe some snaps where you don't have to have Chris Jones on the field. I mean, he played an exorbitant amount of snaps for a 300-pound man in the NFL last year, and maybe a little less of Chris Jones on the field means more production from Chris Jones if he's not gassed. Because there are times where you see him, he gets the double team, it's like, okay, I'm out, right? And everyone's like, why isn't he, fighting through all that? Was he's out there a huge number of snaps. If they've got a little bit better depth, that NASCAR package could be how they apply pressure without having to have Chris Jones, be out there on the field for every snap.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point. And I feel like, to be honest with you, I think that's across the board with some of their older players. The guys who are in their 30s, the key for this whole season for the Chiefs is keeping these guys healthy for a long period of time and fresh. One of the downsides of having that bye so early is you got to play 11 games without getting any kind of rest in here. So that's a long way to go for guys like Chris Jones and Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins. And, you look around the league, there's guys and you're talking about playoff games on top of that. So they may have to play 15 games straight with no break in there. So that's a lot to ask. So any break you can get for Chris Jones is big.
It adds to the importance of securing the bye in that first round of the playoffs, which they obviously have a 2-game lead on. But just to underscore what you said, Soren, Chris Jones has played 80% of the snaps this year. He's never played a higher percentage of defensive snaps in his career.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, we'll get to DeAndre Hopkins and how he did. First, we want you to hear from our friends at Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's #1 accident lawyer. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Besame Wellness for all your cannabis needs. With fast, easy, and discreet delivery, you can enjoy the same deals you enjoy in-store but delivered to your home or office. Even same day. Restrictions may apply. Any questions? Let Besame's top-rated customer service team assist you. And this Chief season, don't miss a minute of the game with no delivery fees on game days. And when the home team wins, so do you. Use promo code three-peat and receive some extra free goodies with your next Besame order. Don't forget, you can still use promo code podcast25 to save 25% on your entire order for online delivery or at any of their 5 area Besame locations.
Jeff, let's talk about DeAndre Hopkins and his debut. What stood out to you from his first game?
I liked what I saw. I was surprised they were able to get him in as much as they did. The things that he did do, the 2 catches he had, that's what I anticipated him doing, like short stuff. Mahomes really, firing into zone windows and him making, not tough catches, but really being reliable in those situations. I thought that, as Sam said, they were more aggressive offensively. That really caught my eye because it almost felt as if, okay, finally, we got a receiver here. We can do what we've been wanting to do for the last 6 weeks and couldn't do it. Let's just start firing away. But I thought that he showed well. I keep saying it, like there will be successful moments because of the principles involved. Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame quarterback, Hall of Fame receiver. But, I think once the script went away and he went away, you saw some slowdown in the offense. I think there will be lulls in this as well.
Okay. Sam, what was your reaction?
I thought it was a really good debut. The 2 questions I had about DeAndre Hopkins, aside from his fit, was just how, for him personally, was how quickly can he learn the playbook? He's on there for 23 snaps. I think that's an indication that they think he's up to speed pretty quickly. Now, I've said this for a long time. #1 wide receivers tend to learn the playbook quickly because their number's called on a lot more of these plays, and those are the ones you remember. But #2 was just his quarterback with Patrick Mahomes, his connection with quarterback Patrick Mahomes, and we saw in this second quarter there was a misfire, and Patrick Mahomes took responsibility, said he just overthrew it, but it's hard to know. But in the first quarter, his very first catch of the game was totally just the result of a quarterback and wide receiver seeing a zone the exact same. And you saw why DeAndre Hopkins is so effective against zone. And Patrick Mahomes said after the game that he could tell by DeAndre Hopkins' body language, the route he recognized, how he recognized that coverage, and therefore he was going to slow up in that soft spot in that zone. And to me, that's a way they could accelerate that process as far as the connection between these 2 guys. And the reason that's so important is everything I said on Friday about this is that DeAndre Hopkins is a guy you're going to have to trust where he's going to be, because it's not like he's this huge separator. It's not like he's this terrific player after the catch. Like, you've got to trust that he's going to be where you think he's going to be, because he can go get it. I mean, he can beat defenders in coverage, and it's exactly why I'm really intrigued to see how this fit's going to be. And that was a positive sign that they could make that part of it work.
Yeah, I like the chemistry. I think Jeff makes a good point about how it was clicking early and then kind of slowed down. The question is, when he gets totally involved in the offense, does that mean he can click all the way through? We also saw what Sam, you've been talking about, the lack of yards after catch. He went down on the first one, and I mean, I feel like, are you just getting down because you think like the tackle sandwich is coming here, and which is okay. I mean, there's something to be said to live to fight another day. I think, especially with the knowledge of concussions now, the old school fight for every inch, I think we've realized is probably a futile effort. So I don't mind a guy getting down, but it's like Andy Reid will try to scheme you catching the ball on the move. And he did that with his second catch. He was just close to the out of bounds. He may have gotten a yard. Did you look? Does he have a yard of yak now?
Two. He's got 2 yards after the catch. Yes.
2 yards.
17 miles an hour.
And Andy Reid is already scheming him up.
He's already scheming up. He had 0 when he got here. He has 2. Now. And so I think that will be interesting to watch. But I did think he looked like a guy that was enthusiastic, was into being here, was within the scheme. He wasn't just like Kadarius Toney trying to put on a show early on. I mean, he went out, did his job, got up, went back to the huddle. I was encouraged. I mean, I liked what I saw anyway. Jeff, the Baltimore Ravens got Diontae Johnson basically for like what we'll have to see. What I got to see if there's extra fifths and extra sixths involved with the two teams. Could be a one spot move.
Yeah.
And the Panthers ate $3 million. Now, I think one of the things that's clear is nobody wanted him. I talked to some folks in the league. They're like, yeah, there's a bit of an attitude problem here. And so, maybe people weren't breaking down the door to get to Diontae Johnson. Maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe the Chiefs kicked the tires. In fact, I know they did. I know they looked at him. They looked at everybody, but and came away saying, look, we need guys that are in it for a championship. This guy's in it for his next contract. They went another direction, but it is pretty interesting. Baltimore Ravens are one of the teams they're competing with directly, and they got Diontae Johnson. We're going to have a nice little race to see who got the better receiver here. What was your reaction to the Johnson deal and whether or not the Chiefs got the right guy?
Well, time will tell that part of it. I mean, Diontae Johnson is he can be high maintenance and he can throw people under the bus. Look, I feel like if he had come to the Chiefs, that wouldn't have been a problem. I think the same thing with the Ravens. He'll fit in because that's how they operate, strong veterans over there as well. The thing about it is he's 28. And the thing about Hop that always concerned me with older receivers is they tend to break down sooner or later. See Stephon Diggs this weekend. See Cooper Kupp. See Julio Jones at this age. Like, you get guys up around 12 seasons in the NFL. That's a lot of tread on your tires, and he's had an injury history as well. So that's the only thing about it that would worry me as a Chiefs fan or the Chiefs employee is just, can he stay healthy? Whereas Diontae Johnson, 28, he still got some time left to make it work.
Reaction between the two, who got the better end of the deal, Sam?
Yeah,
or who got the better deal, I should say. Which team, the Ravens or Chiefs?
Well, I think different teams could be looking for different fits.
Right.
I mean, look, Diontae Johnson throughout his career has dropped a lot of passes. I don't think the Chiefs really, could use another receiver who drops a lot of passes. And they absolutely were interested in Diontae Johnson. Like, they looked at that route. And I think there was a chance that they would acquire Diontae Johnson at one point. But, you guys pointed out the potential attitude stuff. I mean, Diontae Johnson, I know, did a preseason article where he's trying to push back on this narrative that he's a diva. Like, it had gotten to that point to where he felt like he needed to respond to this this narrative. And I think the Chiefs in that case probably should have learned their lesson from having Kadarius Toney in their locker room the past couple of years, and especially acquiring him mid-season. And Jeff, you mentioned that you thought, the Chiefs would make it work. I don't disagree, but they didn't make Kadarius Toney work. That situation, that should have provided the Chiefs a lesson at some point. Yeah. And I think with DeAndre Hopkins, you do have a 32-year-old player who feels like he's accomplished. I mean, Jeff, you called him a Hall of Fame receiver. I agree. He's accomplished everything he can individually. There's one thing left for him to accomplish, and I think that's part of the attraction with DeAndre Hopkins is they feel like all this guy wants right now is a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Jeff, what do these last two trades say about the Chiefs and their quest for a three-peat? They're all in. You touched on this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I think they're all in. They're probably more in than I thought that they were in terms of, and we always talk about how long can they keep this going and dynasties and all this stuff. And look, it's clear to me that they care about this being the first team to do this and that they want to give themselves the best opportunity to do that. Nothing wrong with that. I think, if they did it, it'd be great. It'd be amazing. I love historic achievement. So if they pull it off, it's great. But I'm also always mindful of you don't want to spend all this time trying to chase glory. And what's good about these moves that they've made is that they haven't been heavy investments. Like you said, they haven't been Kadarius Toney level, multiple picks, and we got to make this work. It's if it works out, great. But, I think they want it pretty bad.
Yeah. Sam, what's it say to you?
Well, I do think they're relatively low risk. I don't think it's all that different than the moves they've made the last 2 years. I mean, they gave up more for Kadarius Toney than they've given up for both of these two players combined. They gave up a 6th-rounder for McCole Hardman just a year ago. I thought the bigger sign that they were all in was what they did in the offseason when they signed Chris Jones to a 5-year deal at age 30. We had not seen them in the past sign 30-year-old stars to massive contracts. Like, to me, that was the first signal they're really going for it now. And the Chiefs have never been a future be damned team. In fact, I really think that's the biggest shift between John Dorsey and Brett Veach. Whenever they made that transition to general managers, Brett Veach has always had his eye more on the future than I think the past regime did. But that Chris Jones move was the exception. I mean, that at age 34, that deal's not going to look like the deal it looks like right now. So that was the first sign to me that this team was pushing all in for a three-peat.
Yeah, I think it does say that they're, they care about it. They're going for it. It may get complicated, Jeff, and now the national pundits are talking about the Chiefs going undefeated. I know you've turned up your nose at that one, but that may get complicated. I mean, maybe that's what this is. It's a push to go undefeated, Jeff, and win a third championship. I'll leave the undefeated talk for later. I know we're not going to get there just yet.
I know how national guys think. Being a national, I know they don't watch as much as you think they watch. They got 32 teams. They got to try to act like they know it all about. So
no, but I think you're right, Sam. I mean, the investment isn't that great. But I think also some of it is, injury driven. Like I think it needs to be pointed out. They're reacting to the guys that have gone down. They've been remarkably healthy in their championship runs, and this time they're facing some real adversity with the wide receiver position and now the corner. I know we mentioned they didn't get a corner, but they're getting pass rush to try to maybe alleviate some of the pressure on the corner. And I think it does speak to maybe these kind of moves would have been made in the past if they'd had more of these injuries. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with that. They're in a place they have not been under this current regime in the Patrick Mahomes era, where they're trying to fill some holes, some sizable holes, and that can create some desperation as well. But again, I sit here and I think about what is this team going to look like, at least offensively, next year? Because Rashee Rice is not going to be out there in week 1, probably at 100%. Hollywood Brown may not be here. Juju Smith probably not going to be here. Hopkins. What if Travis Kelce retires? What if Trey Smith is gone? What if they can't figure out the left tackle situation? But there's a lot of things that could lead this team coming. They will be rebuilding, obviously. But Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of moving parts here. And so I do think there's probably an acknowledgement of this is the last time this band is going to be together. So let's make the most of it.
Yeah. I will point out the last time they had to rebuild it and they went all young, they won the Super Bowl. Yeah. Right? That was really 2 years ago. Where they threw
it's hard to do that twice.
Oh, it totally is. I mean, but it doesn't mean that. I think you would agree with this. You're not saying that. Well, they're headed to 7-10 next year and blowing things up. It just means that they're right there. The motor's running and they're putting their foot on the gas right now. It will be more of a long shot next year. I agree. Sammy, does that look that way to you?
Well, theoretically, yes, but I do think they'll have Rashee Rice for the stretch run next year, and they're not going to for this year. And like that's a pretty big addition on this roster, for example. And look, I mean, this could be Travis Kelce's last year. I mean, that's just reality. But this Travis Kelce is not the Travis Kelce that we've seen for the past decade. I mean, that's also part of the reality here is they're already operating with a lesser version of him. And these are great weapons that Patrick Mahomes has. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is 32. Juju Smith-Schuster is injured frequently. His body isn't what it was even 2 years ago when the Chiefs had him. Like you've got a rookie wide receiver that's still trying to get involved in the offense in a very meaningful way. Like he'll have better weapons at some point, and I could even see it being next year.
Yeah, they're gonna have to continue to invest in the weapons, no doubt. Listen, when it comes to your insurance, you can be sure that David Starnes Allstate Insurance has you covered. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations: North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, should we be concerned about Xavier Worthy? Sam, you've pointed out a couple of times some drops from Xavier Worthy. Where's your level of concern with Xavier?
Well, he tracks the ball really well. His speed continues to flash. I think that's the element of that touchdown, his scheme and speed, but his hands do not. And I mentioned he had 2 drops. They're both on third downs. And these last 2 weeks, the Chiefs have made a real effort to get Xavier Worthy involved. And that's a positive sign. I mean, I had mentioned during the bye week, I really went back and studied Xavier Worthy. He was getting open. And the Chiefs obviously saw that too, because they've tried to give him the ball more, but the results haven't been great. I mean, he's been targeted 16 times in the last 2 weeks, and he's generated 56 yards from that. Like, that's not a great equation. I think that the best sign for Xavier Worthy is that Hopkins is a pretty positive influence for him. But what we've seen from him these last 2 weeks is more concerning than I think what we saw from him in the first 4.
Man, I agree. And you were the one that called for more Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
Right. But more Xavier Worthy targets down the field. And we've seen some where they're just, and this is disappointing to me. And Jeff, I'll give credit to, because I was a little more optimistic that we'd see, hey, let's just see him run some regular routes. Like, why does everything have to be a trick play? Well, I've seen him run some regular routes, and it usually ends up being a contested catch, and he doesn't usually come down with it. So that, to me, is a little bit concerning. Jeff, you talked about it. You thought he was going to be more of a feature piece. And at this point, Sam's right. A lot of times throwing in the ball, but still the production is just kind of feature piece. I do want to be clear. Very early in the guy's career.
Very, very early. And sorry, let me interject one thing, Soren. It touches on what you said as far as the contested catches. It's a different issue than like when McCole Hardman had contested catches down the field and on regular routes, intermediate and deep routes, that there is a problem like tracking the ball. Like Xavier Worthy got his hands on both those. I actually thought the second one should have been called a catch and a fumble out of bounds. The first one on a third down, like he tracks that ball perfectly. He gets both hands on it to where if there's nobody around him, I think we're saying that's a pretty good hands catch there. But it's the exact thing that I think a lot of us wondered about him was how is he going to hold up against bigger bodied players?
Yeah, and just I don't remember being on the Xavier Worthy bandwagon. I had down the road. I think he'll be a good player.
No, maybe I didn't do a good job of stating it because Matt says his Worthy doesn't seem to be able to play through contact. Definitely a size thing. Coleman in Buffalo really looks like a better all around player, and that You didn't, yeah, and you talked about that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm giving you credit here since you've made that statement the last couple of games. To Sam's point, they have really targeted him, and they're not getting the production from those targets. We all wondered, is 170 pounds big enough? And you point to Devontae Smith and you point to Deshaun Jackson and say, here are examples of guys that were lighter that could make it happen. Right now, his size does seem to be a problem.
Yeah, and really, and that's the point I was making when he was scoring touchdowns, because they were schemed up and he was wide open. And when he's not getting touched, he looks great. But football is a game where you get touched. And really what Sam is saying about the hands thing, it's really a body control thing for him. When you're that light, you can't get your body into control sometimes. Like if you're running free, yeah, it's great. You can get, all right, I'm ready to make the catch. But when you actually have to get jostled, get yourself back on balance, get your hands ready. I go back to that San Francisco game when he fell down, but he got pushed off balance and he fell down, and then Mahomes to that corner route, and the ball got picked off. It's like you see enough of that on film. Look, we can't really rely on him to be the kind of player that we think it can be right now. I thought that touchdown they threw to him against the Raiders was all about confidence. I thought it was just like, here, just so you can feel good about yourself, we'll give you a little pick play, get you open. But yeah, the numbers suggest a guy who's going to be what I thought, about a 500-yard receiver.
Well, and I'll go a step further. I think it was this game against the Raiders, or maybe I'm getting confused and it goes all the way back to the game against the 49ers. But he had one where they ran him and he cut inside and he got hit and he bounced 3 yards back.
49ers.
Niners, yeah.
It was the Niners. I mean, it was like Wile E. Coyote, got hit with the Acme, big punching glove and just knocked him on his ass 3 yards back. I mean, I was like, oh my God. But I know he's light, but you would think, like, you've always been small, presumably. So you find the way to not take the direct hit, to slither through. I mean, Marcus Allen didn't take, and Marcus Allen was much bigger, obviously, but he was always amazing at how he could, turn the body, shift it, and it would become a glancing blow. Xavier Worthy takes some shots and goes flying, and it's kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly disappointing, but it's kind of disturbing that he isn't a little bit better at figuring out how to avoid some of that stuff.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Devontae Smith. When you watch Devontae Smith play, and this goes back to his college years, if you watch Devontae Smith at Alabama and Xavier Worthy at Texas, they are doing totally different things. And it's because Devontae Smith knows how to control his body in and out of breaks. He knows how to set people up. He knows how to get himself to places so where when he is taking that lick, he's already prepared to take it. He knows how to handle the contact, where Xavier Worthy just ran by people. And it's the guys who are that fast, who are that tiny, tend to be built like Tyreek Hill or Steve Smith, who are sturdier, just more stockier type builds, who can almost be running backs, because that's what you need.
Yeah. You did mention that giving him that touchdown to give him confidence, which I don't disagree. But the fact they are able to scheme up something like that whip route for him to score on, that also speaks to what they are getting from Xavier Worthy, which he does have speed that other guys in the field do not, to where he creates more separation on that sort of play than everyone else does. And that's still, he still has a floor that's very usable for the Chiefs. It's just that his ceiling is going to be dependent on him making these catches in traffic, because there's a lot more traffic in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's still a place for him. The question is he going to be just a niche? And when you move up to 30 to get him, I think the expectation is he'll be more than a niche player. And right now he's looking niche player, valuable niche player. I mean, if he's the very best if he's better than the very best of McCole Hardman, on offense, he's a productive player. But I think people will look back and be like, well, there was this guy and this guy and this guy. And, I do think it would look different with Rashee Rice out there. And I don't think we'll be able, no one's going to make a final judgment off this year alone. But I am interested to see what he looks like when Rashee Rice is, running through the middle.
Hollywood, for that matter.
And Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, the whole purpose of Xavier Worthy is to get him running in space. And the more talent that's around him, the more in space he can be. I do want to, this might be the first time I've ever asked you to put a Tommy Moe comment on the board, Soren. But the nice pick from Justin Watson. Go back and watch both, two of the scores the last couple of weeks, and Justin Watson creates them. I mean, he runs a lot of everything I mentioned about D-Hop earlier about, it's kind of easier to learn the routes when you're the guy who's targeted. The difficulty is learning every position when you're not the guy who's going to be targeted on the play. That's Justin Watson's job, is trying to create openings for other wide receivers. And I understand that he's not been productive. I mentioned it last week that statistically he's not been productive. But Tommy Moe's right on that. The reason they scored that touchdown is because Justin Watson is very effective in the way he sells a pick play.
By the way, and I think Matt's right. 5 touchdowns on pace for 10 or 11. We all would have signed up for that. I mean, I think, yeah, but he's got to do that. I mean, he's got
his ratio of touch to touchdown is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It is. He's going to be the Mark Boerichter of the Kansas City Chiefs. First year with the Chiefs, 20 catches, 8 touchdowns. By the way, not officially, but in my book, officially the rookie record for touchdowns in a season for the Chiefs. Somehow the Canadian League doesn't count. The Japanese League or the Canadian League counts in the NFL, but
he wasn't a rookie.
Japanese League doesn't count in Major League Baseball. It chaps my ass on that one. Jeff, you're the defensive back. How did the Chiefs do replacing Jaylen Watson first time out?
I thought it was up and down. They got through it, but again, like you saw Brock Bowers make some plays on the outside. They felt very comfortable matching him up with McDuffie, which was an interesting, approach to try to get some other guys going. Gardner Minshew, it's hard to judge him, but I just think that it's they got away with some stuff in that game that they probably won't be able to get away with against better teams. I really feel like when they're playing Buffalo, the Texans, even without Stephon Diggs, when Nico Collins gets back, there's going to be some challenges in there on that side of the field, and it's. I just don't think they've got guys who can hold up. Diontae Johnson didn't even finish the game, right? They went to Josh Williams late, right? He got hurt again.
Yeah. Well, they went to Josh Williams, I think, because Diontae Johnson was having problems.
Okay.
Yeah. No. He got hurt.
He got hurt, didn't he?
He was in the concussion protocol.
Yeah. So yeah, he's already hurt again.
Yeah. I mean, which is an issue in and of itself, which speaks back to what we talked about the fact that they, went out and got a pass rusher to help alleviate some of the issues that they have that potentially have in coverage. What did you think of how they, tried to tape over not having Jaylen Watson this time, Sam?
I thought it was okay. And there's a reason that Jaylen Watson won this job. There's a reason he was ahead of the depth chart of Najee Johnson. There's a reason he was ahead on the depth chart than Joshua Williams. Like, you are going to see a drop-off between those guys. And the reason Buffalo's interesting to me is because of the type of receiver Keon Coleman is, not because of his production, but because of how he gets that production, which is look, I think he's 5th worst in the NFL in separation this year on his targets.
Yeah, he's slow.
But they also have confidence in throwing to him. The exact same storyline I've mentioned with D-Hop with Patrick Mahomes is Josh Allen will throw those balls in traffic in a way that I'm interested to see if Mahomes will to Hopkins. But he'll throw those to Keon Coleman already as a rookie. And they faced one of those guys this year in Jamar Chase, and Trent McDuffie was great on Jamar Chase. He had some help over the top so that he could be better on those plays, but still, he had a great day. They haven't faced a lot of that specific type of wide receiver this year. That's the part that's been infrequent. And that's why I think that's going to be an interesting matchup, because Jaylen Watson was a guy that I thought was long enough to do that. Najee Johnson's not. Like, he's not. I think you look at Najee Johnson, you think he's going to be a slot cornerback, but they don't think his skill set fits the slot. They think he's more of an outside guy. And the Chiefs opened up with 2 cornerbacks. Steve Spagnuolo was playing 2 smaller starting cornerbacks to start a game. And that's not his preference. He just thinks those are his 2 most talented guys.
Yeah. It is the one thing that they do have going for them. And, they are lights out against the run. I mean, they continue to be absolutely devastating against the run. And that does make it a little bit easier when they got to pass, right? Like, and at this point, it hasn't been selling out. It's not like quarterbacks are they're throwing 8 guys in the box and just getting beat all over the place downfield, and because they're selling out for it. But I do think that's been one thing that they've been able to hang their hat on. Nobody runs on this team. I mean,
but it's also, again, I hate to be the Debbie Downer about this. And again,
Derrick Henry didn't run on this team. If you're going to say it's not anybody any good,
Lamar Jackson ran for 115. He ran on him.
Well, I think Lamar Jackson was more willing to run against the Chiefs because of the significance of that game than he has been in the games following.
Yeah, that's the point I'm making. I think that there are some teams that they've played that the only option was to run to try to move the football. It's different when you've got guys on the outside who can make plays. You have to take guys out of the box, and you get spread out. I'm telling you right now, and I keep bringing it up. Buffalo, James Cook, 3 wideouts, Dalton Kincaid, and Josh Allen as a running threat. That's going to be a challenge for this defense.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's a challenge.
Everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say they're a challenge for every defense, but the Chiefs are not their Chiefs' run defense is not reliant on these stacked boxes. They're 21st in the NFL this year in stacking the box. Like their defensive line's been really good. That's actually one of the things I'm wondering about Joshua Uche is that he is a lighter body. You mentioned it, Jeff, and the Chiefs' edge rushers have been good against the run this year. And I'm wondering what Spags' willingness is to use them, which is why I do think he's going to be more of a third down guy because everyone on their defensive line has been part of the run defense this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's a great point. We're back at it next Friday at 10 a.m. Remember, you can support the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast by supporting our great sponsors like David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331 for all your insurance needs. Gan Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's best for 30 years. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at ganasphalt.com. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers. Text HURT 22222. That's HURT to 22222. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be made solely upon advertisement. And our friends at Best Me Wellness. Don't forget, you can still use promo code podcast25 to save 25% on your entire order for online delivery or at any of their 5 area Best Me locations. For Jeff Chadiha, for Sam McDowell, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.